Perfect. Okay, and we are on the air. So just like when we're used to previously, you guys' phones away, listening up. We're going to talk about some JavaScript basics. So like I mentioned briefly, JavaScript is a language that can be kind of confusing, but also make a lot of kind of logical sense the way that things are put together. But the reason that it gets confusing is sometimes the logic takes a strange route to get to the end result. Because of this, I think I spelled videos wrong, but I'm going to put lots of different videos in our YouTube playlist, as well as attaching them to the thread for the week. So you guys can see that if you go to this week's thread, it's the new announcement for Tuesday to Friday, if it decides to load today, or, any day now. You can see that in the replies, I've already put a bunch of different videos, as well as like a longer crash course that if you want to really kind of get into the depths of JavaScript on your own to prepare for what we're doing in class, that's the video or the crash course that I'm going to be referencing quite a bit. So you can see that resource there, as well as the W3 Schools link, and then the JavaScript examples, which is something the similar thing that I'm going to walk you through today. You do not have to code along with me if you do not want to, but I do think it would be beneficial to kind of get a feel, the muscle memory of how this JavaScript whole situation works here. So JavaScript has a couple keywords that I want you guys to keep in mind. It is a client-side scripting / programming language. So to break down those terms, client-side, we think about kind of the etymology, the word breakdown. This is something that runs specifically on your machine. Another name for the user is the client, or the thing that's running the software local to the one machine as compared to the server. And JavaScript is going to work almost entirely locally. It can be used in server applications, but a lot of the times it's dependent on the machine that's running it. So it's going to be related to your root folders, especially your local files, especially. It's a client-side based language is something to keep in mind. The other half of that, scripting and programming, HTML and CSS are not scripting nor programming languages. So what is the main difference between HTML, CSS, and JavaScript? HTML is called a markup language because it's just the special way to write that makes the web page appear. Changing different things about how you write is going to create a different output. And CSS is just a styling language. The reason JavaScript differs, and the reason that JavaScript is a little bit more of a challenging language to kind of pick up from the start, is because we're actually creating functions. We're creating conditions, we're creating variables, we're creating storage, we're creating recall, we're creating all types of stuff that actually execute programs, that actually execute step-by-step instructions for something to happen on the page. And I'll show you how to do, or how that can be done, kind of a basic breakdown of JavaScript right now. So here I have a very basic HTML document just called JavaScript demo. Oops, let me undo that real quick. Let me pull up my reference real quick here. All right, where'd it go? There we go. So the tag, just like CSS, you can do inline. You can also do JavaScript inline, but you want to avoid that. For in the meantime, I'll just show you how it works, and then we'll get into the separate file structures and stuff like that. So JavaScript, the tag that you're going to be using if you're trying to create a script to happen is that word exactly, script. So when I hit enter, you'll see it's not a void tag. It has both a start and an end. So you need both of those in order for it to work. And typically script is going to be used as a container element. So you're going to hit enter, and then we'll have script. We'll have a section for our actual script language to go inside of here. And then we'll build it up as we go. So today is strictly just kind of a demonstration of JavaScript. We're going to work a little bit backwards, where I'm going to show you what's possible from the start. And then we'll start getting some terms that define it and start applying those terms in different ways, with my ultimate end goal of understanding how you guys could create some very basic video games on your computers, on your browsers, browser games, things like that. All right, I'm getting ahead of myself anyway. A very key component to JavaScript is the idea of variables. They are variables that you set and that will interact with each other in the way that you determine and that you decide. So the way that you set a variable, because it's all user generated, is the term var for variable. It's the shortened term. And let's say we want to set our variable of x to be equal to the number of 1. Now, this is where the scripting comes into play because we're giving our JavaScript some references, some things that we can work with here. Now we've told Java or JavaScript that x equals 1. All right. And we can do the same thing for a variable of y. Set that to 2, for example. Okay. We've given JavaScript some tools that it can reference here in just a second. So what we can do now that we have some information stored, so to speak, we have a kind of a beginnings of a recipe built inside of our script container. We can add them together, something like a sum. And then we would write the, if you think back in math, the function of sum is just x plus y. So since we're trying to execute the command of sum, we're going to write exactly what we want sum to be. All right. But since we have this variable at the front, this is not the actual function part yet. This is still just giving JavaScript the tools that it needs in order for this execution for this program to occur. In order for the actual program to occur, we need to use a specific type of command. And this command that we're going to use in this case is called document.write. So what that means is that in this HTML document, you can think about HTML pages like recipes, right? I've mentioned that a ton. I'm sure you're sick of me hearing it. But it references a document, and we want to write on that document. So we have our 3 variables here. We have just informational variables setting x equal to 1 and y equal to 2. And we also have a little bit of a function that says when we use the variable of sum, then this thing happens. It's just a very simple sum equation of x plus y. So inside of our document write, this is where we're starting to create these commands for how we want JavaScript to work. It's going to be parentheses, and then this is where you put the variable of the program thing that you're trying to make happen. So if I just write document write sum, what that means is on the document, it's going to execute the write command. So it's going to make text appear on the screen based on the variable of sum. Since we set the variable of sum to be x plus y, and we have determined our values of x equals y, or x equals 1 and y equals 2, when I click run, JavaScript on the client is going to interpret this as, okay, I have my information present here. I have what you're asking me to do here. When I run this, it should give me the number 3. It's not very exciting, but there's a lot of setting information and creating. Here, let me make that a little bit larger. There we go. 500% zoom. We've got it set to 3. So, for example, if I were to change this to 4 and 8 to make 12, since that sum function is still there, when I refresh, it's now going to become 12. JavaScript is the way that you increase the responsivity of your page, and you increase that the way that the user can interact, as well as make the web page a lot more like a living and breathing site that actually has more interaction as compared to just info on a page. So the reason we're getting into JavaScript is up to this point, we've written HTML and CSS, which is very static. If you think back to like your literary terms, static means it's not changing. It's just going to remain consistent throughout the story. However, JavaScript allows us to introduce more dynamic website design, where it's going to respond depending on user input. It's going to change the way things work because it actually has some knowledge. It can do a little bit more thinking, quote unquote, to make cool stuff happen on our page. A lot more cool than a very basic math equation. What you can do, one of the most common JavaScript programs, when I say program, I mean the set of variables and commands that's going to make something happen on the page, right? This is technically a program right here. One of the most common things that you can use JavaScript for is for writing hello world, which is what I'm going to demonstrate to you right now. Changing specific HTML elements depending on a certain level of interactivity and application to what you're trying to do. So what I have here, let me delete this so we can go step by step. The file extension, I'll help you guys with your, if it's not loading for whatever reason. The file extension for JavaScript is JS. It's nice and easy to remember. Okay, we got HTML, hypertext markup language, CSS, cascading style sheets, JS for JavaScript. That's why I had you in the past make a scripts folder or an SRC folder, because that's where our JavaScript is going to go. Now, very similarly to having style sheets in a separate folder, you can have all of your JavaScripts in a separate folder as well, and reference them very similarly to the way you use the Zelda link tag for a style sheet. But instead of the Zelda link tag, it's actually script again, but instead of making a script container, we want script SRC. So the two types of elements that use SRC are images and JavaScript that we've covered thus far. What we can do now is if I were to have a scripts folder, I just make a quick subfolder for scripts. All right, you can see there's nothing in there, rectangle, solid for subfolder like this. If I right click and I go new file, we'll call it something like main.js. You're gonna see it's gonna turn the file icon into a JavaScript icon. When I hit enter, it's gonna open up just like a CSS or an HTML file would. Nothing's in here, doesn't really have any type of instructions or interactions or anything like that. So this is where we can start writing more detailed code, just like we did with CSS. It gets more and more detailed. It needs a separate file to reference later on. So the hello world command, which I think I wrote down. Let me find it real quick. All right. So I'm still learning a lot of what these elements actually do, but the function of this program, good morning. The function of this program is to write the phrase hello world, and it's going to specifically focus, thank you, on an H1 element. So let me write it all out and I'll explain to you how it's working. And then as this week progresses, we'll get more and more in depth onto how JavaScript works. So let me type this out real quick. You do not have to copy me because I am just borrowing this from a tutorial. So my heading equals document, which means we're going to focus on the current HTML document. And then just like with media queries, we're going to have a query selector. And that query, right, we're going to ask the question, is going to be an H1 tag. So this is going to what this is doing here is similar to setting our variables of X and Y. We're setting the my heading variable with a document query selector. So specific to our document, the selector of H1, we're going to make something happen. This is setting the variable. Now we're going to write the execution. So you're going to change the my heading variable. You're going to change the text content of the my heading variable. Again, this will not make sense until we break it down further. So don't worry if it's not making sense yet, because it will with time. We're going to change the text content. We're similarly setting variables here. This is the execution that we want to set the text content to be hello world, right? So with this is our very short 2-line JavaScript programming language that's going to create, and we need a semicolon at the end, that's going to change any type of H1 that's relevant to the attached document, this attached index page right here. It's going to change that to be hello world. So for example, if I had an H1, not an H12, that'd be pretty crazy. H1, this just says tests, right? And this is an empty script folder or an empty script tag, so it's not going to do anything yet. When I run this, you can see, that it just says test. It's normal HTML, the way things are working. However, if I were to do my scripts SRC and link it to that JavaScript file that I just created, so we go to our Explorer, inside of the SRC, just like an image, we're going to go scripts and then main.js, and you do not actually need any text inside of this element, or any content in between the tags, I mean. So these are just start and end tags. Now, when I go back to my output, since we've attached this script, this main.js script, to select our H1 and change it to hello world, when I go back to my output, you can see that this has become hello world, even though it still says test in the HTML. So it's kind of like a call and response sort of situation where if you have a specific set of bones, a specific set of structure on your HTML page that you want to change dependent on maybe the user's device size, maybe the user's language settings, you can adjust hello world to be in a different language, maybe more regional to your users to appeal to a wider audience. This is what that JavaScript is capable of from the start. And so This is an extremely basic introduction that we're going to build on later. We're going to build upon. So we go back here, we revisit the inline script, the existing one that's not a separate file. We can also add a different variable. Sum is addition, right? And then if we add the quotient for division, that's going to be x divided by y. So if we make, I'm changing gears pretty hard. Let's make the variable x of 8 and the variable y of 4. We're going to control S. And since document write is currently set to sum, it's going to take this one and make 12. But if I change this sum to be quotient, or whatever variable I want to assign here, because this is my function, I change this variable to quotient, it should become 2 when I refresh. So it's allowing my computer to think a little bit more. If I were to comment out this script link, it's going to return to test because the JavaScript is no longer attached. So this is just a very basic introduction to JavaScript. I'm curious actually, what are you guys interested in using JavaScript for? Are you guys more interested in game design, more interested in flexibility? What are we feeling? What's the vibe? Which tab? This one? Yeah, of course. Yeah, what's up? Interactivity. Okay, so we want to improve interactivity. I can work with that. All right, game design for sure. And when I say game design, we're not going to be making the a next gen AAA experience. We're going to be making like tic-tac-toe, but it is game design, and you can put it on a resume. Okay, interactivity. Lala, do you have a specific type of interactivity that you're thinking about, or just kind of in general? Okay, text fields. That's a good one. We can talk about text fields and forms, so you can make actually additional interactivity on the website. What else are we feeling? What else do you guys want to learn? What are you looking to get out of? Complex math. Okay, we can do some complex math. Maybe like a math assistant sort of situation. What else are you feeling? Anyone, anything jumping out at y'all that you really want to learn? Well, that seems really interesting. Okay, so we're going to focus. I have game design in mind. I'm going to look for some ways that we can improve interactivity, and we can add some complex math so that everyone's got a yeah, Stephanie.
What else is possible?
There's a lot possible actually, so let's find out real quick. Because I'm still in the early stages of learning JavaScript. I didn't use it very much in my web design career. Excuse me. What is possible? Let's just Google it. JavaScript has been around for a long time. So let's look at 10 practical applications. We'll just read it together. JavaScript. 10 practical applications for JavaScript, right? We know web development. We know applications. This is all. Games is a big one. Art. There's a specific type of JavaScript called Node or p5.js. You can make generative art or creative coding using JavaScript. You can make mobile apps, which we are not going to do, or I can show you guys how to get started on that. But let's see. Let's just look around. Let's see what's possible with JavaScript. 10 things you can build, exactly. It's all going to be kind of the same. This is exactly the same. Yeah, it's literally the same article. Yeah, they did some JavaScript stuff. Mobile front end, back end. Creating maps, it says.
Can you make a website completely out of JavaScript?
JavaScript's just actually, let's find out. I don't know.
What about all the backend stuff, like all the stuff that runs on the server?
Yeah, there's lots of server applications for JavaScript. I can find some stuff out for you. We're just Googling stuff together at this point. Exploring what's possible. So we can see we have a place to load. Okay, so you need a tiny bit of HTML code to load the JavaScript. So you just need kind of like a very simple structure that runs the scripts, and then the rest of the page can be entirely on JS. Okay, let's see. Let's see, art with JavaScript. Let's look up Games with JavaScript. And let's see some cool JavaScript examples. All right. So there's already lots of interesting videos just on a pop-up of viewer looking to use JavaScript as an artistic tool, as an expressive way to code. Creative coding is one of the more up-and-coming art styles. You can make a lot of cool installations. This opens the door for interactive art. If you've ever seen those art installations where when you wave at it, it changes, or when you walk through a specific part of a museum, it reacts to you. JavaScript and another program called Touch Designer is a way to create that. So there's a possibility of art with JavaScript, which we'll examine a little bit. Let's look at some JavaScript games. So if we look at all of these options here, we have the classics. When you think about just very early internet games, we got Frogger, Space Invaders, Hangman, Tic-Tac-Toe. You can make a whack-a-mole. Pong was likely created with some early level JavaScript. 2048, right? Let's check out this game development JavaScript.
What's Frogger?
Frogger, where you cross the street. It's kind of like Crossy Road, avoiding the cars that are coming by. All right, so here's some popular games that were created with JavaScript. Bejeweled is probably not something you guys are super familiar with. 2048, I had a very long 2048 phase back in the early 2000s or the 2010s. Words with Friends 2. Right. There's lots of different game engines we could talk about. JavaScript has been around for a long time, so there's lots of different options, lots of different directions that you can create. There you go. Looks like the Chrome, yeah, it could be Geometry Dash. It could be the Chrome dinosaur game as well. All right, so you got to build your canvas. Right, here's a walkthrough on how to create. You can see there's a lot of steps though. There's a lot of interesting stuff that we're gonna have to cover before we get into the game design, and I will walk you through this step by step. So in the meantime, I'm going to find some more resources on these three kind of ideals for what we're doing with JavaScript. Finals week is, we have a regular week next week, and then finals week should be that 15th, or I don't know, it seems like it changes every year.
I think it's the week after that.
So the 22nd is the first day of finals week? Okay, so that gives us 2 weeks to experiment with some JavaScript and apply it to our previous pages. And we're gonna go basics and then advanced, and then we'll talk about, I'll give you guys some extra time to work on your final, which we'll talk about later this week. You guys will have lots of class time to work on your final for this class. Okay. I apologize for the shaky lesson. I honestly expected today to be a shorter day so that I could help you guys kind of get introduced to JavaScript. What we'll do in the meantime is I will keep finding some JavaScript resources that seem interesting to me. You're welcome to look as well, just to see what kind of game you would want to create with JavaScript, or maybe one that you've already played that has some JavaScript on it. It'd be fun to see how that works out. But then in the meantime, when you guys are back on Thursday, we'll get more into how we can actually start applying it. We'll actually have some assignments and some exercises. Does anybody have any general questions for the good of the order today? We all good? Okay, so what we'll do, since this is our first day back, I'm a little rusty teaching. I imagine you guys are a little rusty student-wise. We'll just kind of use the rest of this period as a study hall. If anyone needs help getting into my Flex, I believe it's set up now. You should still be able to sign up for Flex in general, not just mine. But yeah, we'll just kind of treat the second half of today as a little bit of a study hall as I find some more stuff for us to do for JavaScript. Does that sound good? Does that sound fair? Any complaints? You can Canvas message me if you don't want to call me out here. I understand. Okay. All right, we're wrapping this up.